All right, well, let's get started. I don't know if the more people come in. If they do, we'll just let them join us. Okay, so today in the Hangouts, I really, because Anna had talked about organizing last week, into my library. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what are the things that you don't want to do and what are the things that you want to do to make it the so that you don't spend a lot of effort doing that. I know we organize a lot of contents for you already, in the methods, in the categories, things like that. But it's really beneficial when you organize into your own library because that means everything makes sense to you. You know exactly where things are, you know where to find what you're looking for. Okay, so there are a couple of things that we want to talk about here. So there's only really one thing of don't do, which is don't organize by students. So what I
Okay.
mean by that is I have seen teachers in the past where they will create, say you have 20 students. That means they will create 20 folders for each of these students. And then every week they will go in there and update these folders because they will say, well, now Susie is on unit 2 now, so I'm gonna need to get this content for Susie to study, right? Or we're gonna work on during lessons. And then you're gonna organize it for Johnny, you're gonna organize it for every single kid. That's just way too much effort. So this is one don't do thing. Okay. So, but what we want to do is we want to organize them either by books. So if you have specific books that you're using, is a great way to do that. Now we have already organized them in our methods, some of the books that are popular on the market, but you may use some books that is not so common, then you can definitely do it that way. Organize by books, which level, things like that. Another way you can do is by levels, especially if you're doing some kind of state exams, some sort of tests, and you just want to quiz them and make sure everybody's on the same level. That is another way to organize them. The next way is by topics. So there are a couple of topics that is very beneficial to do in your own library. For example, note reading, because there's so many ways to teach note reading. Some teachers like to teach all the line notes first, maybe all the spaces, maybe just the treble clef, just the bass clef, middle C position, and you name it, right? Landmark, all these things. So if you have different, teach different things at different stages, then I would recommend you create a topic, say note reading or scales, that kind of sort of things, and then put them subfolders for different um, stages they're at. Maybe the first month they're doing only treble clef, second month they're doing bass clef. So we can organize them by topic that way. So that will be a good one to do, a good way to do it too. Um, and in my library, I always have a thing called essentials, or I call it my favorite in my library. We have added that in the SproutBeat quick guide. I'll show that to you later. But you can create your own. So what essentials and miscellaneous to me is some things that are not necessarily tied to a book or level or certain topic. It's just things that I use. For example, a grand staff, some keyboards, maybe a whiteboard, just kind of things that I can get to quickly, regardless what topics or what books I'm using with my students. Um, the next thing that you can organize into my library would be assessments. So let's say your students are finished up level 1 and they're get ready to go on to level 2. Well, before you move them up to the next level, you may have a little assessments games and worksheets that you want them to go through first, just to see where they are, right? So that we're not putting on level 2 without knowing what else they may be missing. All right. And then the next thing you want to do while you're organizing is just to pay attention to the new sections. So every time when you log in, you will end up in the new sections. It's a good way to kind of look at the new section and say, hey, what is new here? Or where can I put them into my library? Do you like any of the new games or worksheets that you see? If you don't feel like you'll use any of those, it's just like, no, that's not the way that I would use, then don't worry about it. Because all those games eventually will go into their own categories, but sometimes it's kind of hard to find where they are. I sometimes can't find my own stuff, be honest with you. I remember like I created something, but I can't find it. So I can only imagine you guys might say, I remember seeing that in the news section, but I have no idea what you want, right? So anytime you see something in news that you're like, oh, I really like this, I would recommend just organize them into where you need to go, or even just put it in the place that you say, I'm gonna come back and look at this later. Okay, so these are the 6 things that you want to do when you organize. So I'm gonna stop sharing this screen now, and I'm go to the SproutBeat app, and then we can kind of go over it, kind of how to do it. Does anybody have any questions so far about this? No? Okay. All right, so now when we're doing this together, if some of you want to like play on your iPad too, that will be perfectly fine. So now I'm sharing my SproutBeat screen, right? So when you organize into books, this is where you would do, you could say like book 1 or book whatever that you may using. And then in the book, you can organize, create more different units that way. So to create a unit is very simple. So far I have 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna create unit 4. So you just click on the little plus sign and say unit 4, and then you say create. And that's it. So now I have unit 4. So let's say if you use piano, I'm going to go back to here. Let's say if you do use Piano Adventures, for example, and you're on premier level. But as you can see, there are so many content. You may say, you know what, in unit 2, I think I just need, now click on this little button here so that you can select. You may just pick like say 10 of this that you like. You don't have to use everything, right? Just a quick tip, if you want to select everything, you can click on this title up here, unit 2. It selects everything for you, and same thing, if you select it, it will deselect everything. So I may select everything and say, you know what, I don't care about the UK one. I'm just don't like that one. I don't need that. I don't need that. Oh, I want the ear training. I'll click this. So this is just an example. So I pick and choose what I think I'll like. And now I'll go organize. I got a little folder. I go to my book 2. Now I'm putting my unit 2. So you can also select contents that you want to assign. Let's say, for example, your students do have their own account. You could then come here and say, this is the assignment that I want to assign to my students. You come here, you click on that, you select all, and then you click assign. So now the kids who are doing unit 2 will have 18 assignments. So then all your students will be getting the same kind of assignments when they get to this book and at this level. So earlier I have mentioned not to organize by student names, because that way you constantly have to update your list, right? But when you organize by books, you do not have to do that. It doesn't matter is Johnny, Susie, whoever comes. So you may have 5 students are working on the same book. They are already here. You just have to do it one time. And then you come to the unit that they need, and you pick the content, and you can assign that way or use it with your students. So that is a good way to kind of make it more efficient, and you don't spend too much time assigning. Okay, so say if I'm on unit 2 and I want to do some review for my kids. I say, okay, this is what we did in unit 2. I want to move this to unit 3. So I'm going to click a few of this, and I can organize it, and I can go back to my book 1. But this time I'm going to put it in unit 3 because I want to make sure we review those. So in that case, instead of saying move, I'm going to make a copy. So now I'll have the same information in my unit 2. Uh-oh. Didn't I just do that? All right, let me go back. Because I was still selected. All right, so let me look at this. So I got unit 2. Did I not? Yeah, and I have copied 4 of those into my unit 3 as review. So you can build reviewing material into your next unit, plus all the new materials that way. But the idea is you want to organize it the way that makes sense to you. Okay. Doing level is the same way. If you have kids working on some kind of exam, you can create different levels too. Now topics. So I'm gonna use these scales as an example. So I could create a category called topics, a folder, and then in there I say majors. And inside the majors, I could list out all the different keys that I have. So right now I list out, well, they're in alphabetical order, so I couldn't do them with like, one shop, two shops in that order. So I got 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's say if I want to create another one, I can say E major, right? So I could create a subfolder for each of my keys. So when I'm looking at C major, you can see I have gathered 10 resources that talk about C major. Maybe this is for fingering. If you want a student working on fingering, this may be for a little bit younger students because they're still working on whole and half steps. So they have to first start with tonic, and then they got to go say whole step, half step. They go through this process. They have to put dots on the piano key, things like that, right? But if you have an older students, maybe they don't do that at all. They just go straight into doing something like this. Mark the half steps with accidentals and name the tonic and dominant. But the point is I have everything about C major in here, so I can go to this very quickly and then find the things that I need. Maybe you want to do C major and triads, maybe it's C major and chords and things like that. So that's the beauty about my library is you can design them however that makes sense to you. And this is just what I'm talking about, organize them by topic, right? By skills or by note reading or by time signature if you want to. Now you can always come here and do that, but I can just show you how a little bit more tedious it can be. So if I come to scales, I can turn off the worksheets. I can just see the games. I can say major key. So it does help me narrow it down, but I'm still at 69 content, and it does go in alphabetical order. So I start with A major. So you can see A major, all the way, then you go to A flat. So if you're looking for C major, you do have to scroll a little bit, and then you can get to it. And then if you want G major, then you got to scroll and go find the G. So as you can see, if you're in lessons, sometimes it's just one of those like, wait, where did it go? And maybe you want a triad to go with it, a chord to go with your C major scales. And then you have to go back to your chords, and then you're going to go find C major. So as you can see, it will take a little bit more steps. But if I have them all organized in my scales, in my C major, I will be able to get to what I need a lot quicker, hopefully with all the things that I want when I teach C major. Yeah? Okay. So next thing that I talked about is organized by essentials. So this is what we already have it here, lesson essentials. It's just some things that you may use like just that with your lessons, staffs, maybe a sticky notes like that. It's called Let's Discover. Have the kids kind of go through their pieces first, kind of analyze the song before they play. Maybe is an articulations. Maybe they were like skipping all their staccatos or legatos. This is a time you can play on the piano, and then they can fill in the articulations for you. Maybe you play it 3 different times on the same melody. They have to be able to hear the differences, and they have to mark the examples. But again, you can pick whatever things that you think that you're gonna need when you teach students, and these are just not tied to any methods. It's not tied to any lessons. It's just a very generic things that you can use. All right. And then we talk about assessments. I think assessments is great. Now you can always come to some of this like ABRSM, look at what their levels at and use this as assessments. You can do it that one way, or you can just create your own and say, my students at the end of level 1, I will need to make sure they can do X, Y, and Z, and just organize them that way. Okay. The last thing that I talked about was the new. This is the new section. Every time you log in, you're gonna see this. They're probably gonna stay here for another week or 2. When I add new content, I will move this. So like here, the animal sound is great. It's gonna be in ear training. So when this is get removed from the new section, the way you get to this animal sound, it would be you come here, you go to ear training right here. Again, that's a lot. So you want to narrow it down, and then you can see, it's right here. So that's why it's going to take a little bit looking for it, right? But if you know you love this ear training a lot, I will go ahead and say, I love this one. I'm going to organize it in my library. I'm going to call it ear training, maybe for my young students, young kids. I don't know, something like that. Okay. So now I'm going to gather a lot of ear training that I like for my young students. Maybe this one is a good one too. So let's go and do that. So let's go to ear training. Let's just pretend we're doing that for our young students. So we already got that one, the one with the low and middle and high sound. Maybe we'll do some of this, like this. There's another high and low sound with the dog barking sound. I don't know if you have heard that. This is actually dog barking sound. High sound, low sound. I like that. Maybe up and down, going higher, going lower. Oh, the owl is really good for young beginners. Maybe I'll do something like this. Okay, and I'm gonna organize it. I'm gonna say ear training for my young kids. I say copy. So now when I have a young student comes in and I want to do ear training with them, as you can see, I already gathered them in one spot. That makes it really easy for me to get to. Right. So if you have, say, 6 young students that you keep finding yourself, you know what, I seems to keep looking for the same games that I've been using with my other students, go ahead and organize them so that you don't have to always go through the method process or the category process to find what you're looking for.